We've worked our whole lives, saved and invested just to achieve financial freedom, and been led to believe that instead of painting the perfect financial picture, everyone's plan is the same. But the truth is, no one is like you, and you deserve a financial strategy just as unique as you are. How do you navigate the complexities and volatility of a financial environment that just never sits still? And how do you find the guidance you need? Who do you trust with the wisdom to paint your financial masterpiece? You've arrived. This is the Wealth Council. Thanks so much for joining us on the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson, and we're going to talk a little bit about insecurity, or what's supposed to be secure. Social Security, at least by the numbers, is supposed to be insolvent by 2033. How do you feel secure about that? What are we supposed to do about it less than 10 years away? Joining us to talk about that, independent advisors from around the country. 𝗏𝗏𝘗𝗂 out of Tennessee, Paul Roberts along the Gulf Coast, out of Biloxi, Mississippi, and out of Connecticut, Ben Fuchs. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. I don't feel secure about Social Security, and if we're going to be insolvent in less than 10 years, Jay, what am I supposed to do about it?
Well, you better have a plan. If you're going to be insolvent in anything, and you feel like that you don't have enough to meet your retirement needs, you better have an income plan. But at least, and like we were saying a little while ago, even before the show, is that we're having a conversation about this now. We're starting to talk about it because it's one of those things where people have tried to push it under the rug for years and years and years, right?
There's been conversations forever in Congress about this. They go into a room, they talk about something, they come out and they say, let's let the next one do it, which is why we're here at 2033.
You're right.
That's
You're right, but I think
accurate.
we're starting to talk about it around the dinner table now. Is because it's not just the Congress is talking about it, it's that my clients, Paul's clients, Ben's clients are starting to talk about it around their family table and say, listen, can we depend on Social Security any longer? Because this is something that we've seen that Congress is going to continue to push under the rug. So having an honest conversation around the table to say, how big a part of Social Security should our income plan be in retirement? That's what the conversation should be had.
Paul, you say you've been dealing with this for decades and nobody's listened kind of thing.
This is something we've been screaming from the rooftops, Brad, for 2 decades now. You know, it was over a decade ago when Social Security at their website told us that they would be insolvent by 2033. You know, this is not new news, but to Jay's point, it is great that we're at least having the conversation today. And it is creating, like you said, Brad, a lot of insecurity for people. But the question is, you know, and going back to what Jay said, it's proper planning, right? Do we know whether Social Security will stay solvent or will become insolvent? No. Congress doesn't know. How are we supposed to know? How are we supposed to know the future? What we do and what we talk to clients about and we preach is building a plan that can weather the storm, whatever that storm is and whatever arrives in the future. Don't be dependent. Don't put yourself in a place where you're fully dependent on Social Security.
Ben, people are in a storm right now. When we talk about Social Security, 1 out of every 4 households depending on Social Security for 90% of their income. More Americans are depending on it as half of their income. If this goes away, how does putting a plan together solve my problem?
For a lot of people, it doesn't. For the people that are already taking it, that are relying on this, where it might drop by 23, 24, 25%, depending on what numbers they come up with, they're still going to have a problem. There isn't a fix that we can just create, but for the people that have the opportunity, we need to create a plan ahead of time to make sure that they do not have that insecurity. There is a problem. Again, there is a contractual obligation. You've been paying into Social Security your entire life. You deserve a specific paycheck because that was what they promised. To have them cut it, not fair, but we can't control that. What we can control is the plan that we create to make sure that you do have confidence going into retirement.
Paul, you were ready to jump.
Yeah, well, it's right to Ben's point. You know, the insolvency, is it coming? We don't know. What will the future hold? We don't know. Can you plan? Yes. Now, I very much in line with your thought there. What do the people who are out there fully dependent on Social Security do? Are we going to have major demographic problems and population problems in this country going forward? I would say yes, right? You know, they say history repeats itself. And you remember after the Great Depression, we had bread lines, right? So how many years will it be before we have bread lines back in the U.S., right? It is a scary thought going forward. But the people who are not fully dependent on Social Security do have savings and do have other assets can do something about it.
This is why people need an independent fiduciary working for them to create an income plan going forward, where Social Security is not the largest part of their take-home pay in retirement. Because they can, if you're listening and you're 50 to 60 years old and you're still working, there's still plenty of time that we can create a plan to say, Social Security was never meant to be the main dependent income in your household. And yet people are using it as such. Yet it is. It is right now. So that's why we encourage folks, call in, meet with us, because we want to put a plan together to how can we maximize your retirement funds so that you have an income plan that actually works, maybe absent of Social Security, but if not, at least a minimization of what Social Security is so that we don't have to rely on it so much.
Okay, buzzword, maximization. Here we go. And a lot of people go, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to be good. I'm going to maximize my Social Security. I'm going to wait till not even full retirement age.
Sure.
I'm going to max it out at 70. I'm going to wait that long. Well, here the problem is you got to live to that long. So does math actually work into this, Paul, when we're talking about whether I go at 62, whether I go at full retirement age, whether I go at 70?
In making this decision with our clients, one of the biggest factors is always what we call break-even analysis, right? Where's that break-even point? If I waited to take my benefit, how long do I have to live before it becomes a benefit to me? And it's generally somewhere around age 81 to 82. So when we make these Social Security decisions, it's not all simply math. It's looking at your genetics. You know, what is your life expectancy? Do people in your family live late into the 90s? Maybe it's in your best interest to hold off on that benefit and have greater income later. A lot of our clients today are in disagreement with the holding off because of, first of all, the insecurity around Social Security, number one, right? And then the second thing is they say, okay, well, if the break-even point is after 81 or 82, at that point, my money's going to the doctor and Walgreens. Right. Do I want more income later in life when I can't utilize it, right? We call it the go-go stage, the slow-go stage, and the no-go stage of retirement. Most people today are saying, you know what, I want my money now while I'm in the go-go stage so I can go and enjoy life and utilize that.
But I think there's a counterpoint there, right? I think so many times, and I see this all across, there are ads, how do you get the most money from Social Security? And I think that's always the wrong approach. It's not about the most money from Social Security. It's what do I actually take home? And so maybe I do delay a little bit longer because I'm going to be taxed differently on that money when I actually get it. If I take it and I'm still working and I'm 67, okay, I'm not penalized, great. But how much am I actually taking home? How much is that helping me versus using it when I actually need it and being taxed less on it?
There's not a one-size-fits-all approach here. That's what you're saying, everybody has an individual plan and everybody should be optimizing their Social Security for their family and their family's needs.
Are you one of those Americans that has not put together a written plan? Have you worked in your Social Security optimization rather than just waiting for maximization? You got to be alive to get your money. I know it sounds cliche. It's true. Time is running out. Call the number on your screen. Let us help put Social Security into a holistic plan that takes you into retirement and through retirement as long as you live. Call the number now, click the QR code, and the Wealth Council returns after this.
For your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Council, call 844-463-3466. Taking part in getting the most from your Social Security with this guide costs you nothing. Not taking part can cost you and your spouse a lot. Discover strategies that fit your unique situation and help you make the most of every dollar. Call for your free Social Security maximization guide from the Wealth Council, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
Welcome back to the Wealth Council. I'm Brad Johansson. Let's talk junk drawer, shall we? It's a term that we use quite a bit. Let's also talk plan, because we're going to lead you to a plan, but sometimes you go, what the heck does that mean? I got a couple of advisors who might be able to explain it. Ryan Willis out of Texas. Stuart Willis out of everywhere, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, Arizona.
He's quite famous.
He is quite famous. Just ask him.
I'll tell you real fast.
Guys, I want to talk about the junk drawer factor, and I want to talk about the plan because we say you need a plan. I want to talk about what's in the plan, but let's start with the junk drawer if we can, because there's a term that everybody has one in their house. What's the junk drawer in investments, Ryan?
The junk drawer is when the statement comes in the mail. You don't open it, you don't look at it, you just put it in the junk drawer. And it stays there. And it ages like fine wine. and you're basically throwing money at the problem and hoping something good happens.
But you're saying there's something within that thing that you don't open that you throw in the junk drawer that is a junk drawer itself?
Well, what I'm saying is there can be, for sure. It's important to know what you have. And I think when folks take the junk drawer approach, they either have approach avoidance to investing or they don't understand what they have. And there's just so many cosms to that, because if you look at money managers, for instance, Stuart and I evaluate money managers every single year. We were required to. And I've had conversations with money managers and say, hey, listen, you guys were rated the top money manager last year. I want you to manage money for my clients. And I get on the phone with the money manager and they say, well, what do you guys want? Well, here's what I want. I want the least amount of risk, the most amount of return, while paying the least amount of fees. And they go, okay, tell me more. It's all right, well, we want low drawdown, low risk. And the reality is they come back and say, that's not what we do. We are required to use the stocks in our benchmark to generate our returns. And we have to be invested 100% of the time. And so what happens if the market falls down 27% and the manager only goes down 24%, the people that use them are happy because they beat the market, their benchmark, by 3%. But the client lost 24% of their money. So if you don't know what you don't have, or don't know what you have, and you don't understand how it's managed, you're setting yourself up for a situation to where your plan, you're just taking an approach where it's not likely going to work out.
Okay, it leads to a plan. What's in a plan? I come to you, Stuart, and I say, I want a plan. We're going to tell people. Wealth Counsel put together a plan for you. What's a plan consist of in retirement?
Well, first of all, I think the important thing is to know how much risk you're comfortable with, right? The plan is all about establishing the fact that you have a risk tolerance level that matches what your investment risk actually is. And I think that's number one.
Tolerance versus capacity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And most people have no clue. They'll say they're conservative, and to Ryan's point, hey, only down 24%. Well, is that acceptable? Because I know there's some clients out there that can't lose, they can't sleep at night with 1 or 2% down, right? Now, there's others that are go-getters that can handle the full risk of the market. But number one, to make sure that your risk tolerance and the actual risk in your portfolio are a match, okay? That's number one. Number two, you also need to have a tax plan, okay? So you need to make sure.
A lot of advisors don't talk about taxes.
A lot of them can't.
Yeah, a lot of big box firms are prohibited from having tax conversations. So if your financial advisor isn't asking to look at your tax return each and every year, you're missing half the story. Now, look, we have a full tax practice in our firm, and we don't expect other firms to go to that extent, but they should still analyze your tax returns so that they can give you advice. We're in one of the most efficient tax windows in history. If you're not taking advantage of it, it's a mistake.
Do you need your junk drawer cleaned out? Do you need a plan? Different than the other guy's plan? Call the number on your screen. Let the Wealth Counsel put together an individual plan for you that cleans out your junk drawer, lets you know what your tolerance is as well as your capacity. Let's put together a plan for you. Call the number on your screen, click the QR code. Let's clean this clutter up. The Wealth Counsel continues after this.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Counsel right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Counsel right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
Welcome back to the Wealth Counsel. Brad Johansson with the Advisor Spotlight. Greg Taylor out of Columbus, Ohio. And I don't know whether many people know, but once they meet you, they do, that your path into this industry came out of ministry, but the stories that then come out of it really kind of transcend that or actually marry with where you begin before. I know you have so many. Is there someone that you can pick out that was one that touched your heart, one that kind of signifies why you do what you do right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I could probably list many, many
I'll
of them,
bet you
Brad.
can.
But our motto in our firm is plan smart, retire well. But sometimes you're really reminded about why you do what you do. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, Dan and Mary came in one day, and As Dan came through the front door and as he was being seated, I noticed that he had difficulty in his gait as he was walking into the conference room. And as I came in to join them, he was still trying to get situated in the conference room, and he sat down. And of course, we had our greetings at the beginning, and it was a lovely meeting this couple. They were just a sweet, sweet couple. And I said, Dan, tell me about what's troubling you. And he said, well, I have early onset of Parkinson's disease. And so as we started talking about what was important to them, how much income they needed, what their life was like, and things that were truly important to them, we started getting the context of a plan. But one of the things they brought to my attention right away was, we're really concerned about long-term care. We're really concerned about the possible costs and how that could impact the wife's ability to maintain her lifestyle if something happened to Dan. So we crafted a plan. They needed about $50,000 a year of additional income to meet where they needed to be lifestyle-wise with their income. And so we crafted that plan, but the tool we used had a unique feature. Since they couldn't qualify for long-term care insurance, we found this tool that if Dan was ever at the point where he couldn't perform 2 of 6 of his activities of daily living, if he couldn't bathe, if he couldn't feed himself, if he couldn't transfer, if he wasn't able to maintain his normal course of life, then the income could double for up to 5 years. Well, time went on, and I met with Dan and Mary on a regular basis every year, and we would talk about where he was. And each year they would come in. The next year he had a cane. The following year it was a walker. Then the next year he couldn't come in with Mary. And she was caring for him at home and doing the very best she could. But finally the day came in, she called and wanted to schedule a meeting, and it wasn't our annual review meeting. And I said, Mary, what's going on? She said, well, in tears, she's like, Greg, the day's come, I've got to put him in a home. And of course, we're both crying at this point.
Yeah.
And I said, Mary, you have a plan. And so Jessica, who helps with our customer service, she got the form ready, and we were then able to give her $100,000 a year, which paid for Dan's care while he was there. Then, Brad, what's interesting is, Dan eventually passed away, and Mary came in, she said, now, Greg, I've got that $50,000 a year for life. She says, I'm taking my first cruise. That's why we do what we do.
And there's story after story. It's life-changing, because we talk about this all the time, about the relationship. Who can I trust with not only my finances, but what's going forward? This is the place that you find that, with people who have the heart to make your retirement worthwhile. Thanks for the story. Thanks for doing what you do. Appreciate you. Appreciate you being with us. Wealth Counsel continues after this.
Think of how much you've saved in your 401k, 403b, or TSP retirement accounts, okay? You have that number? Great. Now, subtract 20 to 30% from that number for taxes. That's how much you actually have saved. Call the Wealth Counsel at 844-463-3466 right now for your free retirement tax guide. Your 2024 tax guide is free for the viewers of the Wealth Counsel, so call now, 844-463-3466, or scan the QR code below from your smartphone camera.
To the Wealth Counsel, I'm Brad Johansson with independent advisors from around the country. Tom Mosley out of California, Kristina King-Kepperling out of Kentucky. Nice to have you with us. I want to talk about a recent Money magazine article that came out. 5 biggest risks that people face in retirement, ranked. And what they start out with is what everybody's concerned about, outliving their money in the retirement. Kristina, it's something that you see in your office every day?
Absolutely. Outliving the money is probably the #1 concern of every retiree, because, I don't know one single person that ever wants to run out of money in any stage of their life, especially retirement.
And this becomes the most scary part of it, Tom. As we come in, people are saying, I haven't done the numbers, and math always wins. This becomes part of the plan to say, what do you mean I might outlive my money? Nobody ever told me this might be a concern for me.
The problem, too, is what you do in your 60s is dictated by that. Because if you're concerned and you don't have a plan and you fear that you're going to outlive your money and you're going to be that 85-year-old that can't afford to go to the drugstore or can't afford to go to the grocery store, then you're not going to do the things in your go-go years of retirement in your 60s. Even though you may be able to well afford it, you're not going to go do those things because you don't have a plan. You don't have a plan that's going to secure your 80s, so therefore you have an insecure 60-year period in your life where you're not going to do the things that you're going to go and have fun and enjoy.
All right, number 2 on the list was higher than expected medical costs, because we're seeing that constantly. People can't even afford to try and get well at this point.
Yes, that is so scary. And you know, medical has changed over the years to where I think it just increases our longevity, which is the risk overall.
No question.
And especially with ladies, you know, we're going to live longer than ever. And when I think about the high medical costs, we would never want to be in a position where you didn't have a plan in place to where you would have to make decisions between those medical needs and perhaps even keeping warm in the winter.
If we list number 3, it goes to stock market volatility, which we have seen over the years, Tom. 2022 crashed a lot of portfolios. 2023 came back. We now enter an election year of 2024. And the volatility, many of these people have a lot of their money that they believe is going to be their retirement in the stock market.
Well, you've done that for 40 years. You've left it in the stock market. It's been very, very good to you because it's grown. And you have a problem in that you think that retirement and taking money out of that 401k, same rules as putting money into the 401k. And so when the market has one of its little, fall-offs, and you're putting money in, that's a great time to buy because you're buying twice as many shares maybe. But when the market goes down and you're in retirement and you're taking money out, terrible time to take money out because you're taking out twice as many shares.
But the fact that we're not realizing that maybe we've spent so many years in accumulation, the distribution phase is changing and we haven't planned for it.
Absolutely, and I think that the number one conversation that's not being had during both of these phases is what is the risk tolerance overall? If you're not talking about risk while you're contributing and while you're decumulating, you've got a problem inside of your plan.
This is kind of what we talk about, right? Okay, I'm very risk tolerant, but what's your risk capacity? And people haven't adjusted for that, right?
Yes.
Right. They've just, we'll put you in something moderate.
Sure.
What does moderate mean? We'll put you in something balanced. What does balanced mean? There are actually some tests or quizzes or evaluations, I like to call them, that you can go through and you can say, that's me. I mean, I'm on a scale of 0 to 100, I'm at about a 25 or a 30. Well, you need to be very, very low in the risk that you're taking. But if you're 70, 75 on that score, then you can stand it. You can sleep at night with that. And you need to be invested the way that would be best for you to be able to sleep at night and enjoy what you're doing in retirement.
I got to get to the other 2. Family expenses are things that people are worried about. One of the top 5 risks. Why family expenses become so important in a plan?
Well, I think that right at this moment, I really hate to open up this can of worms here, but I think people are having a hard time getting their children off the payroll. And they're paying for things that they shouldn't be. So
the generations have changed.
They sure have. I know my children in their 20s and getting ready to have a little grandson, they are definitely still a priority for me. But there comes a time where you need to say, you need to be taking care of yourself. It's time for me to be focused on myself and my retirement.
Tom, you're very big on Social Security changes, and the rules have changed in Social Security. Why does this become risk number 5?
Well, they've been telling us for 20 years that by 2034, they may have to reduce benefits to 78 to 79%. And they put some numbers to it, and they said that might be between $8,000 and $17,000 per year per person. So, we're a lot closer to 2034 than we were 20 years ago when they started telling us that. The average American gets about 40% of their income from Social Security in retirement. Now, my question to you is not so much, you can't do anything about whether they're going to drop the payouts or not. But what are you going to do to respond to that? How am I going to make up that $8,000, $17,000, $12,000 a year? And what am I going to do in my plan to make up for that 60% that Social Security doesn't take care of anyway? You've got to build a plan in retirement for how your income, you see it, you know that it's coming, you know where it's coming, and it's not so much in the volatility of the market up and down.
Tom, Kristina, thank you. Appreciate it. The question is, which of those risks do you worry most about? Have you covered them? Have you figured out a plan for yourself? Call the number on your screen right now. Don't waste any more time. Scratch the risks off your to-do list. The Wealth Council returns after this.
Are you preparing to make your retirement funds work for you while not taking too much risk? While there is no substitute for sitting down with an independent financial advisor, why don't you learn the strategies of investing as well? Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now to learn about investment strategies that align with your goals. Call for your free retirement investing guide from the Wealth Council right now. 844-463-3466. That's 844-463-3466.
We're all different when it comes to retirement, but most of us have that same lingering question. Can I do this? Well, the Wealth Council is here to say yes, you can. And it's why we emphasize how important it is to have a plan, and not just any plan, a plan that an independent advisor has built just for you. A holistic plan that addresses investing, long-term tax plan, Social Security, and legacy planning to help you navigate the retirement of your dreams. So if you've been waiting and wondering, maybe this is your time. Call or click the QR code now. Reach out to someone that you can trust. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brad Johansson, and until next time, it's the Council's wisdom, it's your wealth.